Hello everybody, it's Zeidoktor here, and this episode of the Typical Manga Review is going to be dedicated to My Hero Academia, Chapter 124, The Quickening, the Internship episode. And I find the title very amusing to myself because I just recently listened to the How Did This Get Made episode about Highlander 2, The Quickening, so little personal note there. We start with Todoroki just marveling over the fact that Fallout Boy Mirio pretty much took out half the class in an instant, which I guess confirms that the timer bit from earlier was indeed 5 seconds. In any case, Todoroki's marveling this is the man closest to number 1. Eraserhead asks why Todoroki's not actually joining in since he's got his own ambitions on this, but Todoroki explains that he doesn't have a professional license yet, so this doesn't really concern him. Well, I'm adding that last part. Everybody's down, and even Zero and Kaminari are actually tied to each other. But Mirio's like, all that's left are the close range ones. And everyone's like, no, that has no idea how he's pulling it off. Like, he's already so strong with being able to phase through us, but teleportation too? Isn't he basically invincible? And we see Wallflower over there, Amajiki, thinking invincible, huh? I can tell what level you guys are just from that one word. Kind of like how an amateur isn't able to understand what professionals do that makes them so special. If you can't tell how much effort Mirio has put in to get where he is now, there's no way you'll be able to. Of course, as he's thinking this, Deku's already declared that there's got to be some sort of trick to it. Whether he's using a phasing quirk to teleport or using a teleportation quirk to phase, whatever it is, he'll be using a direct attack. If we aim for that moment to counterattack, we should be able to touch him. If we don't understand how he's doing it, then we've got to narrow down the possibilities of using what you know. Either way, let's find a way to beat him. Mirio and Amajiki are kind of watching this. Like, Kira seems like, all right, I like this freed from house arrest Midoriya. Mirio challenges them to fight and then sinks into the ground, leaving his pants behind. Everyone's shocked that he actually submerged, went underground. And then he pops out from behind Deku, but Deku's already fighting back. This actually seems to surprise Mirio a bit. Like, he's not just reacting. Did he predict that I would appear here? At this point, though, it's still not enough because he's actually phased through Midoriya's leg to get the closing attack here. And he actually gets a little eye poking on him. And then just gut punches him. And as he does, he's pointing out, everyone tries to counter me like that, you know? So naturally, I trained to counter them, too. And then, while Ida's busy, like, screaming out Midoriya's name, Mirio's being right behind him. It's like, hey, Togata, hey, are you listening? Togata's gotten really strong, hasn't he? With point, Amajiki's like, he's been strong ever since he was a little kid, but he needs to really learn how to go easy on people. Because we're seeing he's pretty much just taking everybody down. Yeah, power! And then, as we finish off, whew, just managed to keep the jewels under wraps. Apologies for all that, ladies. And so that's the gist of it. Everybody's just looking there beaten. Without understanding how, all of us suffered only punches to the gut. Like, each and every one of them got punched. And he's asked him, is my quirk strong? It was like, too strong? How unfair, how am I supposed to feel? Not only phasing, but teleporting too? Are you one of those hybrids like Todoroki? Todoroki's like, what? At which point, Hato, hey girl! Oh, I know about his quirk. Let me tell him. Hato, right now is Mirio's time. Okay. No, I've only got one quirk. It's called permeation. And as he's actually talking, he actually looks at Hato like, sorry. He's just sitting there sulking. So the moment you guys are calling teleportation, just as you thought, it's just an application of my quirk. And Deku's wondering just how he's able to pull that off when Uraraka knows like he's writing notes. So he's taking notes is so habitual that he's actually just doing it even though he doesn't have a pen and notebook. He describes that if he's able to activate his quirk throughout his whole body, it's capable of passing through anything. And when I say anything, that includes the ground. So he wasn't submerging; he was falling. And when he falls into the ground, he falls into the ground, and if he releases his quirk while he's falling, an odd thing happens. It does that the masks can't overlap on top of each other, so I get catapulted out. In other words, I get shot out of the ground in an instant. That's the phenomenon behind my teleportation. By adjusting the direction of and pose of my body, I can control the angle and target where I'm sought out to. As Zeidoktor points out, it sounds like a video game glitch, which Mario finds hilarious. Like, it's a perfect way to put it. And Asui is like not just being able to avoid any attack, but also able to move wherever you want in an instant. That really is a strong quirk. But Mario points out it's not at all strong. It's strong because I made it strong. When I activate my quirk, no oxygen can get into my lungs. After all, even if I inhale, it all just passes through me. My eardrums do not vibrate, my retinas catch no light. Everything passes through me. I become unable to feel anything. Because I still have mass, the only thing I feel is the sensation of falling. Are you starting to understand now? Let's say I want to pass through a wall. I activate my quirk except for one foot. Then I release onto the other foot so I can contact the ground. Then I activate in the first foot and pass through. Even the simplest of movements requires a set of operations. And we see a little diagram of him doing this, like being completely phased except for his feet to maintain contact with the ground, and that's it. Even Kaminari even knows that for them, they'd probably mess up because they were in a rush. On top of that, you can't feel it anymore. You might not be able to move. And Mario explains that he even seemed to have that exact problem. Like, I fell behind. Before I knew it, every last thing had fallen away. Even my clothes. And with this quirk, if you want to keep moving up, that's the last thing you can afford to let happen. That's why you need prediction. It's the way to be faster than your surroundings. The way to trick time. Prediction is the most critical skill of all. And the thing that makes those predictions possible is experience. Predictions are built on experience. It took a little bit of time, but that's why I wanted to play this game with you all. Instead of with words, I wanted to show you with my experience. In these internships, we are no longer treated like guests, but rather we act as sidekicks for the pros. And that is a very terrifying thing. There have been instances where people have died. Nonetheless, no matter how scary or difficult the thought may be, all of it is an invaluable experience that you cannot get in school. With the experience I gained from my internship, I was able to transform my power and reach the top. And for that reason, scary or not, this is an opportunity you cannot miss out on. And everybody's applauding like this. He even sounds like a pro. It only took him 3 panels to explain it too. Thank you, Yayorozu. And Kaminari and Jiro are noting that it did feel like they were more like guests during their field training. Like they were prevented from doing anything particularly dangerous. And as Eraser is calling everyone to come back, it's like Hana's like, "Hey, was there a point in us being here today? What do you think?" "It's good we didn't have to do anything," says the wallflower. "Let's be thankful for Mirio." And Deku's thinking to himself that even though there were big drawbacks to his power, to make the most of it, he gained as much experience as he could to learn how to predict it. And he's thinking to himself that they really have some strong people at the top of UA. Through hard work and perseverance, he was able to reach the top. Mirio Togata. So everyone gives them a proper thank you. And as they walk back, Hato and Amadika are kind of talking to him. It's like, "I don't think you were going to go overboard and injure them all, but wow, it's quite impressive that no one got injured in the end." "Oh no, it's quite dangerous. My jewels almost..." "Was there anyone you thought was interesting? Someone caught your eye?" "Oh, it's just Hato talking." "Begin by eliminating the foes in the rear. That's my battle strategy of choice." Then he thinks to the problem child. "He analyzed and predicted my first move and responded accordingly." And he thinks to himself that he might like Sir. And what do you think about... And then we see them out there wondering about talking about the internships, while Bakugo's like, "Bring your damn trash to me!" With Tokiyami in the back, presumably getting ready to do just that. It's like... Ashido's like, "It's kind of romantic how he went from the top all the way from the bottom." And an odd little thing with the art. I mean, I know last chapter's thing said Asui's hands were big, but it's like really prominent in this panel. As are her eyes. They stare into my soul. Stare. Stare. Anyway, they do have the green light from Aizawa, and it's all pretty much on their part. And Gran Torino's like, "What internship? Who do you think you are?" "Well, I was wondering if you were accepting any, but I look away for 1 second, now you're already looking for internships? Well, look at you acting like a big shot." Like, "Sorry, kid, I've got enough on my plate right now without taking care of you." Of course, the problem there is that since you're supposed to take advantage of this connection you made during the sports festival, Gran Torino is the only one he has to turn to. And while he's thinking to Bakugo, Midori is declaring that he's going to do whatever it takes to get close to becoming number one. You're just trying to sound cool saying things like that. Something like this, you can just go and talk to your master. You know that he's completely devoted to your education, kind of stating the obvious choice there. But Deku knows that they're supposed to use a connection they made for the sports festival. But then again, that only applies to people who actually have those connections. And Deku notes that in Gran Torino tells Deku that All Might will be able to introduce him to a number of people. For example, his former sidekick. And we come to a picture of it's Sakamoto-kun from Haven't You Heard on Sakamoto. He's cameoing this week. Get the jazzy number going, people. Alright, anyway, but seriously, it's that guy, like a really straight-laced looking guy in glasses. Like someone comes in calling, "Sir, we have reports from the other perpetrators' movements. Oh, hey, plainclothes again today? Give me the information in one go, with energy." "Yes, sir. The leader of the designated villain organization currently under our investigation, who bears the villain name Overhaul. He appears to have made contact with the League of Villains." And indeed, we get a 2-page spread, though it doesn't really look like it here, of Overhaul meeting Shigaraki. And we see Twice has brought them aboard here. Like, if you try talking to him, he's a surprisingly good guy. He asked me to let you talk to him, Shigaraki. He gave me the creeps! Twice, you brought me a good one, didn't you? And that is where the chapter ends. So this was, as noted by my petty attempts at doing voices, a mostly expositional chapter. Like, we've been able to see how Fallout Boy, he's not especially powerful on his own, but by learning to make very good use of his quirk and get very powerful, he's, very powerful. I think this is a good lesson for Deku in a lot of ways, because of all the problems he had with his quirk starting out. Like, he's only just now starting to get some of the idea going behind that. And the way to make it sounds like Sir was the one who trained Fallout Boy. Like, because he makes a very specific point of calling him Sir, and then we get Sir with Sakamoto over there. I'm trying to think, what's a good way for the superhero Sakamoto? Sakahiro, Supermoto. Oh, Supermoto. I'm gonna go with Supermoto. Anyway, and actually, it gives you a lot of insight to quirks in a lot of ways. So, there's that page on TV tropes, required secondary powers. We're talking about how superpowers would require certain extra abilities to make sure you can use them properly. The problem Deku always had was that his super strength never came with invulnerability, so he kept injuring himself every time he used it. Or Todoroki's fire and ice, he can't. It threatens to hit him really hard with the temperatures. He could freeze himself to death if he overuses his ice. He actually needs his firepower to specifically use that, which makes you wonder how it is for Endeavor or his mother, who don't have that particular part of it. Or how Kaminari can only, his electricity can short circuit himself if he's not careful with it. That's why I went to May. So you definitely get some interesting abilities going on there for it. And in this case, Togata does not have these the abilities. He doesn't have, for example, Kitty Pryde. She doesn't have any problem risking falling to the earth, but Togata can. If he just plummets, he actually has to deactivate his power in order to. Stop and think about that for a moment. In order to fully use his powers, he has to regularly become blind, deaf, and unable to breathe. The only sensation he gets is the one of falling through the earth. And he has to be able to do that all while also figuring out how he's going to position himself to pop out where he wants to. And he's doing it in the blink of an eye with, just by all that alone, you can realize that he deserves his position as the number one person at that school. And it actually occurs to me, that's actually, not dissimilar to Deku in a way, because that's sort of where Deku excels. Or at least to a point. Or actually, no, maybe he doesn't. He actually doesn't. I think Bago even said he tends to overthink things. So maybe I got it backwards. Still, I do hope now that we are going to get to see Deku introduced to Supermoto, because those guys are going to be an interesting pair just by what we've seen already. Incidentally, just as a little random thing, I've been calling him Sakamoto because of that whole Sakamoto Deska, or Haven't You Heard I'm Sakamoto? Look it up, worth it, trust me. One of the iconic little bits of it early on is Sakamoto, some of the other classmates are trying to bully him, so they take his chair as he's about to sit down, and he just sits down on the air. He just sits there like no problem at all. And as a result, one meme picture I've seen already is of that, but with the chair take of his the scene of him sitting at the computer, but with the chair taken out, so he looks like he's doing exactly the same thing. See, I'm trying to think of what else worked here. Like I said, we'll definitely be seeing more of All Might by the sound of it. He's if Deku does kind of follow up on this idea of getting in touch with him as the getting in touch with the sidekick or someone else. I do wonder what Supermoto's actual name and powers are, because obviously, and what kind of terms they're on with. He's on with All Might. I mean, there aren't very many people on bad terms with All Might except for Endeavor and the villains. So, someone who's actually like specifically studied or trained under him or worked under him would definitely be something to consider. It does seem kind of odd to imagine All Might with a sidekick, though, like with his own little boy Wonder. But especially since, in a lot of ways, that's kind of what Deku's already doing. Still, it does make sense. I mean, that's the way the corporate hero world works in this series. So, it's not really a shock that he has a sidekick. Just surprising to actually see it mentioned and brought up. And then finally, our big little one here of our new villain meeting our established villain, Overhaul and Shigaraki. I think that's going to be that's probably going to get us set up for whatever craziness Deku ends up getting involved in during the work study with whoever he winds up with, be it Supermoto or somebody else. I wonder if this will be problematic as well, because the whole big thing was already made that All Might should not be encountering Shigaraki, and that's where this seems to be heading. So, interesting to see where that goes. But yeah, like I said, this was a really good chapter, at least in the sense of like getting some insight into how. Like, actually, here that does remind me. Before I start changing this off too early, one little bit of forum thread this I was following is like points out like with powers like this, like with Togata's, how traumatic does that have to be for like little kids when they actually get these powers for the first time? I mean, like take Uraraka for instance, like little 3, 4, or 5-year-old Uraraka like playing patty cake with somebody, and then all of a sudden they start floating away on her. Like, wait, what? So I imagine that, like at least in the case where the parents are around, like they can, or where families are around, they can kind of warn, they can at least kind of prepare the kids for what quirks they might get. So they let them know, like if something like this happens, here's what you do, or how to concentrate on things. Then again, you also get the hybrid cases like Todoroki, or I wonder if Bakugo is like that, because I don't know what the parents' quirks are. So, it's tough, but it does create some interesting scenarios when you stop and think about what parents have to kind of warn their little kids about when it comes about when they're getting ready to get their quirks to come in. So that's kind of an idea, especially with the scarier quirks like say Tokoyami's Dark Shadow. I mean, can you imagine that? There's a monster under the bed, and I think it's me. Yeah, so I think at that point we're good to go. Like I said, that was just like a little interesting aside that I kind of took note of while just kind of keeping up on little discussions about this. Nothing special is really coming to my mind otherwise, beyond what we kind of already discussed here. I do want to see where this whole thing kind of takes Deku, and I noticed last week I was saying Togata was ominous in a few ways, the way they was presented, but now I'm not so sure. Maybe I was just reading too much into it. Actually, a little random thought. I wonder now if Sir Supermoto was the one who told All Might about him as a possible successor. If so, that could create a definite wrinkle for Deku when he does the work study. Wonder what we'll see about that then. But for now, I think at this point, yeah, I'm ready to call the review here. That has been My Hero Academia, Chapter 124, The Quickening, the internship episode. And just kind of give you guys a reminder, this week it's Hero Academia and One Piece. Also, last week I put up a new little review of a little one-shot review of a segment I'm calling Under the Radar, where you can kind of learn more about series that might not get a lot of widespread recognition, or might not be well known beyond maybe like a few spots here and there. Or at least that I haven't heard of beyond a few spots here or there. It could be super famous for all I know. Anyway, just look up Under the Radar and you'll see those videos coming up there for you. In the meantime, you have a good week and bye-bye.